whenever we are ready. So going live, and welcome live to the Movement, Strength and Play podcast. Jason Bell from the NFL show. How are you doing, my good friend?
I'm good. I'm good. Live TV always makes me nervous, so but I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, at
Let's
least
have
you're
a
used
good
to it.
time.
We don't even know what we're doing.
It's fun.
Jason, absolute pleasure to get you back on. This is your second visit to the podcast with us, and this time, so in the previous podcast, we talked a bit about your NFL career background, injuries. This week, we want to talk a little bit more around what the future looks like for you. And we've been talking about for a number of weeks now, months, about this idea of a physical pension, which is something that we've started working together on, trying to help you to get rid of some of those aches and pains and reclaim some of that movement which you'd lost. For those people that haven't listened to the first podcast or may not have come across, an award-winning broadcaster, am I right? You got it this year?
Yes, we were lucky enough to win.
Yeah, surely the trophy is somewhere there.
I'm waiting for them to deliver it. I really am.
Give us a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about about your sporting athletic background, your work on the NFL show, and then just dive us into a little bit about where you were at physically when we first connected sometime last summer before the world got locked down and stole all our fun.
All right. So I've been playing football since I was 14 years old, college 5 years, the NFL for 7. So a lot of trauma, a lot of injuries. Got hurt in college. My heel, had a surgery on that. I missed a year, almost was not able to make it to the NFL. So when I got in the league, it was an uphill battle because of that.
How old were you then, Jason? First surgery.
First surgery, I was 21. I think I was 21. Yeah. So I would have that year I was one of the top corners in the country, and the next year I would have got drafted probably pretty high, but missed the entire season. So I didn't think I was going to ever play football again, to be honest. I was very lucky to get back on the field. So it really put a lot of things in perspective, and it's why I kind of view my process in the world the way I do now, is because of that time in my life. But that's what probably helped me sustain and last in the NFL as long as I did up until the back injury. And that's because I understood the battle and I understood how to overcome all the adversity that was in front of me. Sorry, that being said, got hurt in the pros my second year, end up winning an award for the comeback player of the year. And broke my forearm, played again, broke my forearm again, played through that. And then had to retire because of a back injury. So I have an artificial disc in my back now, and that is the reason why my career ended. But I probably had about 1 or 2 years after that. So I played as long as I probably could have.
You got some metal in those arms, is that right?
Yeah, got metal in the arms, got a metal rod in both arms, both forearms. So it was hard getting through airports for a while, but they kind of figured that out. It was a little difficult. The wands, I go off all the time, so I'm a security hazard. Trust me.
I remember I was supposed to have a metal plate put in my cheek after I broke my cheekbone once, and after the surgery, when I woke up, the doc came in and he was like, "Oh, we pulled it back into place, and it was I checked it. He sort of like was doing this, like he was like, we checked that it was stable." And I'm like, "Were you literally just punching me in the face?" When I was asked to see. And he said it didn't need a plate. So I was actually a bit gutted because I wanted that. I wanted the whole like walking through the airport, the sirens going off, and being like, "Yeah, I've just got some metal in me." But
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, I think so. I bet actually it's just annoying after the first time. But just some context for people. There'll be, I think there's a lot of the audience will be in America, so they'll know when you say football, we're talking American football. But for the UK listeners, and this was a bit of a surprise for me, like not really knowing that much about American football, thinking that the career-wise would be similar. Like in football, in England, like soccer, people will play now to like, Ronaldo's like mid-30s. Like people will play from 18 up until mid-30s professionally, sort of no problem. Whereas the NFL career is a lot shorter. Just give us a bit of context of that, just to set the scene.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a lot shorter because we go through the college system. So a lot of us are getting drafted in our 20s compared to in our teens.
Yeah.
And then also it's a physical sport. So you have to stay healthy. And then there's competition. Every year you have the new college guys coming in trying to take your job, and you don't have a semi-pro league. So you're either there or you're not. So it's constant competition, and you have to stay healthy. So in the NFL, in the first couple of years, you have to identify your skill set and your role, and you have to just be the best at that. And whoever they bring in to compete with you, you have to win that battle every offseason for that job. Because, you know, in the NFL, it's a position-specific sport. So everyone has a role, and you're in a constant battle for that. And you see guys that last a long time because they're there for a while, but that's not the norm. It's about a 2.5-year average. So if you can get over that hump, you've beat the statistical odds.
Is it worse, Jason, for like certain positions over others? We see the likes of the Bradys and Aaron Rodgers, who've just been in the league for years and years. Is it more like in your position where, because obviously those guys, the job is for the most of the team to protect them from an offensive perspective, but do you find that you get a higher player turnover in other positions?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really hard for the running backs, the guys that get the ball handed off to them and they get tackled on every play. That is a hard position. Constantly contact every down. You're getting hit. People are attacking you. And I feel that
but by the biggest dudes on the pitch as well, right? You're like not a big dude, and you get absolutely piled by huge guys.
Yeah, and that's what the piles are. I mean, those guys are underneath the pile constantly. I don't know how they do it, actually. I've been under the pile before, and I panicked like I was a child. So those guys on every play, they're doing it. But that's a pretty difficult and tough position. I feel like at that position, you don't really slow down. You kind of fall off of a cliff. They're really good, and then all of a sudden, the skills are just gone because of that physical toll that it takes on their body. So that would be a tough one. When you talk about the quarterback position, you're right. They last longer because they're protected, and the rules are set up to keep them healthy, which I totally understand. So, and that's why that is. You see a lot of positions where the people and players that last are those that understand their deficiencies as they get older. So if they slow down, they understand the game so well, and they've studied for so many years that lack of speed or that lost step they make up with their knowledge of the game. And you see those players excel as they get older.
Yeah. Well,
are you in contact with other people that sort of play with you, Jason? Like, we're going to move on to this kind of this conversation around people who will. There'll be loads of people where they've played at such an elite level as you did, or were like weekend warriors, as we sometimes call them, like I was, just being a bit too small for a rugby player, but going out every weekend and just getting absolutely filled in, and still coming out of that career of like 20 years of trying to play at a relatively mediocre.
And that's just in the bar afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And it's obviously made me laugh before, because Jacko's got this thing he said to me before, which made me smile, where you said like you got an award for best comeback in my leagues. That was like the most improved player, and Jacko affectionately says that was the worst player from the year before gets that award.
just got a bit better.
Player that I was. Yeah.
You better take all the awards you can get. It doesn't matter what it is.
I've got.
I need a cabinet.
I've got one from when I was like 6 years old, which I think is like the first award I ever, or like thing I ever got, and it was best effort. And like that basically meant you were rubbish, but you were just a trier.
This kid's got a chance.
Yeah, I guess.
But do you find that, what is the general story of people coming out of the NFL? Obviously, concussion has been a big one, but like if you guys are just going out there and the intensity of training and as you say, the competition, that all brings a melting pot from a physical perspective of just, it's a hard place to survive. So when you leave the NFL at the elite level, you say there's not really the league for you to drop down. So you must find that a lot of people with a similar situation to you of just coming in broken, battered, and then how old were you when you retired from the NFL?
Just turned 30.
Okay, so you've now got 50, hopefully more, years of your life to live with what the NFL gave you as a parting gift. Talk us a little bit about that, about what it was like when you left, and then how you kind of felt in your body, and then what that was like for the next sort of 3, 4, 5 years from there onwards.
Well, it's interesting because I look back on it, it was probably one of the most difficult times in my life. And it was because no matter how prepared you are for it, you still have to live through it. And the hard part is you come into the NFL or whatever profession you do, you're usually with your peers, with people of the same age doing the same thing, the same struggles. When you retire, you do it by yourself. it's not like you choose with a group of players, hey, we're going to retire this year and go through this process together. Hey, let's do it. No, they're still playing. You have to go on and do whatever is next that you choose to do in your life. And you're usually doing that by yourself. You have people to help you, but you have to overcome a lot of things. And I'll be something inside of you dies. It's something you've done your whole life, you focused in on, and it was everything that you thought of every day, and it's over. And so even with me, I knew what I wanted to do when I retired. It was still hard. It was still tough. Luckily, a friend of mine he got hurt at the same time. His name's Carlos Evans. He's one of my closest friends, a linebacker, and he played 13 years. And we both had back injuries and retired at the same time. And I remember talking to him for at least 4 or 5 hours a day, probably 6-7 months. I mean, just me and him on the phone. And, he was starting a business. I was going, starting my business. We had things to do, but we were just depressed, man. We were used to going to practice every day. Our routine was disrupted. It changed, and it was hard. So dealing with that on the mental side and dealing with the physical pain of he had back surgery. I was going through rehab, getting ready for back surgery. So it wasn't like we could physically go out there and do what we had done our whole life. So it was a constant battle every day. But luckily, I had strong people around me to really help me and assist me through that process. But, every player that leaves their sport or something they've done their whole life, regardless if it was a sport or a job or anything, a career, it's that period of mourning. And I always say, be sensitive to yourself in that process. And it's okay to, to be upset and grieve, because it's natural. And that was the process with me. When I was going through it, I didn't know it was so intense. But when I look back, I'm very aware of what was happening now.
Yeah. Is there any, obviously, I'd finished playing rugby as well. And there was never really, I'd always knew, in your mind, you're not going to do these sports forever. So you're going to retire, whether it's from injury or just whatever, it's going to happen. But you don't really think too much about it. And certainly my experience, there wasn't an awful lot of, I think it's a little bit better now, but much support or just awareness for that. Are you seeing, you're doing stuff with the NFL Academy, is there any sort of support out there now, or just helping people prepare, or is it still, there's so much of a focus on just performing this season or this day in practice, this game at the weekend, and looking ahead gets sort of left a little bit behind? What's your sort of view on that, and is there any changes going on there?
There has been a lot of change, especially in the NFL. They do their best to kind of support and put programs together for players in that process. But you make a good point. Regardless how much that you get yourself ready for that transition, you can't have 1 foot in, 1 out of a professional sport or anything. You got to be all in, or you could really get hurt, or something could happen. Your performance would suffer drastically. So you are all in when you're in. So how much attention are you actually giving to what you're going to do next? You can have a goal in mind and start to get those relationships figured out to make your pathway smooth, but still it's a crash course, because you're all in or you're all out.
Yeah. Well,
even at my level, and Jacko, we've talked about this before, but when I stopped playing rugby, I'd been a rugby player since I was 11 years old, 11 years old. And then at age probably 20, 30, something like that, I think when I stopped playing, that identity of I'm not a rugby player anymore. I'm not going to be with my rugby mates anymore that much. And it's, I struggled with that, even at a very average amateur level. But how did you, because I think we sometimes can forget that's your life, as you said before. Have you got any advice for anybody, even at whatever level, when they have identified for as long as you did when you, as a football player and other people? My wife's a hockey player. She's thinking about whether she's going to play anymore. What does it mean to kind of not have that identity anymore? How did you transition?
That is tough. What I won't say lucky, but what happened to me is college. When I got hurt at UCLA and I thought I was never going to play again, that's when I had that identity crisis. I didn't know of Jason without football, without being a football player. And so that year I went through that, and it was hard. It was tough. It was probably easier for me because I was younger. I was in college. Everybody's trying to figure themselves out and what they're going to do next. So I went into the NFL understanding that I was never going to identify myself with just being an NFL player. I didn't allow people to do that to me, and I didn't do it to myself. And that is why when I retired, my identity was already headed towards something else and what my view of myself was. But I had went through that pain before. I see players go through it all the time. And once again, it's one of those things where I'm always like, it's okay to feel like this. It's all right. Like not a lot of people are professional athletes at, or at the top in the world. So, and most of the time, if you are, you don't have to stop doing it. Like you can be the best lawyer in the world. When do you stop? When you want to stop, I mean, you're forced to stop doing something you have worked your whole life to do, or you have to change. And that is difficult. And I say lawyer because I remember talking to my lawyer in Los Angeles about it. And we were having this discussion, me, him, and some other players. And he looked up and he goes, "You're right. I don't want to stop practicing law. Like, I don't know what I would do." Yeah. And it just changed like his whole perspective on it. So I think athletes in general, or anyone that is changing a dramatic change in a career, it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to feel like you've lost your identity. Like, don't feel bad because of that, because it just gets better every day. You just find something else and you carry that with you, and you are proud of what you are. Like, now that I retired, I completely identify with being an NFL player. I'll say it at any moment I can. I loved every second of it. Now that I can look back on my career and I have transitioned into other things. But when I was playing, I was so scared of that transition that I avoided being wrapped up in that. So it's just a balance.
Yeah. I think the best bit of advice you say there is, like, rather than, what I love is the fact you haven't gone trying to actually give some advice, like try this, to do this, try that. It's just like, just let yourself know that it's okay to feel those things, and like you will work them out. Like the next day will come, and the next thing will happen, and stuff will go on, and just accept it. Yeah, I think that's really. I wish I'd had some of those conversations before it happened, but just to hear that, I think is great. And I guess we've talked a bit about how some of the injuries you had, and some of the things that some of the other players will have gone through, and that whole thing of like thinking about the future from what you're going to do identity wise, what you're going to do job wise, and all that sort of stuff. But there's also a case of like, what are we doing to look after our bodies and look after ourselves physically and mentally? And those two things are linked in together, because if we physically feel good, like mentally that helps. If physically we're in pain, like it's very difficult for you to be happy mentally and flourishing in other areas of your life. So we've I say we, Tim coined this phrase that we use, the invest in your physical pension. Tim's always the good ideas guy with all the slogans.
That's a good partnership you guys got too, by the way. That's good. That's good. Keep it up.
Well, so there was one thing I was thinking before of, like, there must be certain, we can make it less NFL specific in a second. It's just, I was thinking of when we talk about those different positions and players and the ones that get sort of battered the most. I just think of, like, I don't know a lot about the positions, but like the massive dudes that are at the front, they're just literally like a fridge, and they just like push each other like this. And then I'm thinking, I want to be that guy. Like, he looks like he's so big, like he doesn't get hurt by other people. And I imagine he has a great time. His diet must be amazing.
They're trying to keep the weight up. Most of them can't sustain that weight. They're always, they're trying to stay big, because if you lose 5 or 10 pounds, you are getting pushed around. So yeah. It is important. Yeah, they all of them, when they retire, the big guys, they usually go one or two ways. They usually get really thin, and you look at them and you're like, "Who are you?" Or they get, and those smart ones, you're like, "What happened to you? You look like a surfer, man. You look great." Or the ones that get too big, you're always a little worried about. But players are well aware of what they need to do now when they retire to take care of their health. To what you were saying earlier.
So my first question on this whole sort of like physical pension side of things, look after, is something that I used to really struggle with, and still probably do to this day, and probably will forever, but over time it's changing, is that like that mindset that you get when you're training for like the NFL. Like you're going like boom, like everything is about. It's not about oh, I'm gonna train like this because that means I'm gonna like not have back pain when I'm older. It's like I've got to hit that guy as hard as I can, and like we don't necessarily have regard for this. It's a different mindset, right? And so how is that mindset like for you? Have you found it difficult to in terms of like what you're doing with your training now? Like how has that impacted, and how have you had to change that mindset towards how you approach like physical exercise? And you must be a competitive guy. Like you don't get to where you've done in the NFL by loving training and being competitive, but obviously now things have to look a little bit different.
I think to your point, I like to train for a goal, right? I never went into the gym and was like, oh, I need a bigger bicep, or something like crazy. Like, I mean, there are players that went in there and, they did things for aesthetic value, but I just never, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of getting pushed around. So I need to do this, or I need to be faster. I need to do this. I always had a goal in mind. So because of that, it's the same way I approach training now. First of all, you're spot on when you talk about, being physically feeling well to do whatever you need to do and be engaged, especially mentally. Like a lot of stuff I do, I approach it just like I do the game. Like I got to feel well. My body has to feel well for me to go out there and be productive. So if I'm in any pain, that is really hindering the things that I'm trying to do now. Even though I don't play, I'm not pushing anybody around or running fast at all, but I have to feel physically fit. And pain does not fit into that equation. So now when I train, it's all about understanding what end result I want. How do I want to feel? So I need to train to feel better. So that's the competition. The competition is, all right, if I do this, if I stick to this, if I have this discipline, if I just listen to what Tim and Jacko are telling me and do these workouts the right way, then, I will get the result that I need, which is feeling better, feeling stronger, and especially being a dad, being able with a daughter, being able to be physically imposing for as long as possible. So
I thought you were going to say to keep up with her and be able to decide.
No, I just want to answer the door and look strong. That's all I'm trying to do. So
it's about aesthetics now.
That is just wear a bunch of sweaters and just look really strong. So
I sent Jacko when Naomi, my little girl, she's like 4 weeks old, was born. I sent Jacko that clip from Bad Boys where they answer the door and it's Reggie there, and I was like, mate, this is me and you in 18 years.
That's it. Pressure. It's like have you seen her dad? Oh man, you better be nice.
I was going to say before, like, it makes when you talk about the nutrition for the guys going back, like, I think these two things can come together. I watched the All or Nothing, the Philadelphia Eagles edition, and there's a guy for Thanksgiving there who put a turkey in a deep fat fryer. Like,
you've never seen that before? Oh man, you need to go to Texas, man. Come on, when I first got to Texas, everybody was doing that. I said, this looks like a fire hazard. This is we don't do this in LA. But no, it's good though. It tastes really good. But yeah, it's a lot of homes have been victimized because of that process.
But that plus like boyfriend intimidation, I think get a deep fried turkey, get a few jumpers on, get a few bicep curls done, and like no boy is coming anywhere near. That's the way I've
got a weird one for you. That we've had some like fairly big Tongans and Samoans come and play with us, and they would have some interesting eating habits. One of which I'd never come across this before, so I don't know whether where they'd get a whole French baguette, chop the top off, eat all of the bread on the inside, then get like a can of Coke or like some sort of fizzy pop drink and pour that in to the baguette that's like got no middle, and then eat this like weirdly fizzy, like soggy bread thing.
Really? Yeah. That's amazing. I grew up with Samoans and Tongans, so but yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Maybe that was They'd eat a whole loaf of bread in like a snack would be a loaf of bread, dip a loaf of bread in it, a cup of tea, and a whole loaf of bread, just dipping it in. That's a snack.
Oh man,
it was like those dudes were big.
Well, the French are croissants dipped in coffee. That's the Parisian way. Sorry, that was a serious conversation we're having about physical future.
Sorry,
hijacked with deep fried turkeys. Where do we go back? Let's get back to that. So in terms of that feeling moving forwards and being fit and able for the future, let's talk a little bit about your sort of journey into calisthenics. Because when we first met up, you were like already like super engaged and excited about that form of training. What's the mindset around that in terms of what you were doing before? I'm not sure many people would kind of, I don't know if hand balancing has quite made it to the NFL yet. I mean, it's to come because it's good for shoulders, but you're already quite invested down that line. What was your mindset around what you thought about calisthenics and bodyweight training and what it represents for you in terms of the benefits it might bring?
So when I was playing, I think maybe my second year, I was introduced to calisthenics. I read a book about it, and I started doing a ton of body squats and a lot of handstands and pull-ups and things of that nature. And it just made me, the lactic acid buildup and the strength I got from that just made me so dangerous on the football field. I could run for days, and I couldn't get that through lifting weights. So I saw the immediate results, and I knew how many I needed to do during the week, and I would taper off towards the game day, and I could feel it immediately. And even with just when I started doing a lot of pull-ups, it was when I had to get a defender off me or somebody trying to block me, no matter how much weights I lifted, I didn't have that same power I did from pull-ups where I could pull guys and move them. So it was something that I just continued to test each week, every year. So I realized, I got to lift weights. I had to have that base, but it's this calisthenics stuff that's taken me to the next level. And when I did not do the body squats the way I was doing them throughout the year, if I just got lazy, I could immediately feel it. Like it probably took a week or two, and then I was like, I need to get back on it. So I knew the stuff worked, and I knew in the off season before I started to get ready to train again, I would do that first to kind of get my base together. So I was testing it on myself. I understood it worked, and I understood it didn't put the pressure and pain on my joints, especially with the back issue I had, because I was born kind of with a fusion with my sacrum to my hips. So it's certain things I couldn't do. So it gave me the ability to work around all those things, but yet feel stronger than I did lifting weights.
Yeah, I think that's one point I was going to make. I mean, loading up a back squat with a ton of weight on it when you've got a lower back issue is just never going to be a good idea, compressing the spine in that way. So you've been able to find that way to get the athletic edge that you wanted. And a load of people in strength and conditioning would go, bodyweight squats won't make you run fast. And like pull-ups and that sort of thing won't make you as strong as doing weights. But I always refer back to, there's always going to be a place for lifting heavy weights for power and speed development. But like you say, that connection that you get when you're doing pull-ups, for example, it's that total body. We talk about fascial slings, right, and chains. So it's the ability of the whole body to create force in a dynamic environment where people are moving at high speeds and it's awkward. It's not the same as just pulling a weight off the ground. I definitely think it's a key part for where this sort of stuff fits within athleticism. So it's pretty cool to hear that you've kind of actually experienced that, because a lot of people would look at it from the outside in and going, if I want to get strong, I've got to deadlift 200 kilos. There's a role for it, but it's not the be all and end all. There's no magic bullet.
No, you got to be, when it comes to sports, competitive sports, right, you have to have muscle endurance. And that's the key. You can be strong for one play. What happens on the next play? So you have to have that muscle endurance, and you have to have a way to train that. And that's what calisthenics always did for me, is I was able to train that muscle endurance and be able to do it over and over again and understand how to, like I said before, it was that lactic acid buildup, like controlling that, being able to recover from that. I never got that from lifting weights. It was only body weight workouts.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing about NFL, isn't it? If you're on the field for a long time and they drive either offense or defense, like it's max effort every single time. So you can be doing 20, 30-meter repeat sprints over and over and over until you get off the field and you get to go and have a break. It's like in rugby when I was playing on the wing, I might not get the ball for 35 minutes.
Or 2 weeks.
That's why you got that trophy?
Yeah.
It was weeks when I didn't catch the ball. So let's have a look at so now where we're going. So we've got to this point now where you're sort of getting back into training, because when we spoke before, you'd had quite a long break of not really doing a huge amount of training, right? And now you sort of like started to pick that up, and I love working with athletes, particularly from people that have retired, because that mentality hasn't gone away. So when we started kind of getting you onto a bit more regular program, I texted you and was like, how many sessions a week are you doing? I thought you might come back and go 1, maybe 2 if I can fit it in. You're like 5 days a week, baby.
5 days a week, man. I'm not letting you down. I'm not wasting your text messages. I'm getting it done. Don't you worry.
So how's it feeling now to be back into a program, starting to move a little bit differently? And let's talk a little bit around this, the reduction in back pain that you've received, that you've sort of experienced recently, because we've been trying to work out. My big objective is if we can work with you to get you pain-free. It doesn't need to be back to lifting 2 times body weight in a deadlift. I just want you to move without pain, and then we can decide where we want to go.
Yeah, first of all, when I started and you got me back on a program, mentally it just felt better, like just knowing that I had now taken that first step towards doing what I wanted to do and achieving physical being pain-free. So just starting was great. It was a great feeling. But as I began, I started to see some of the places I was weak, and I could start to see pain go away. And then the best thing was being able to come back to you and you articulate back to me on things that I needed to change to prevent injuries, and then working on that, saying this hurt and that. I had a knee pain in my back, was hurting in a certain place, and just being able to correct those things and move on was really the key, because the hardest thing with working out and getting a new program is when you start to feel pain or something's wrong. How do I correct that? How do I work around that? Is it technique? Is it something else I need to do? So being able to do that's been instrumental in this process. And now every day I'm just feeling stronger. I can feel my lower back pain going away, which allows me to enjoy the day more, the weeks more. Because some days, all day I'm just spending time trying to stretch and figure out how to make my low back pain go away. And that's kind of miserable. So just taking the time every day to do the workouts, understanding that it's going to make me feel better as a whole has been key. Once again, it's all about, like you said, the physical pension plan. I'm in finance. I'm all about investing in the future. So you can invest all you want. If you're not physically there to enjoy it, what does it matter? Yeah, so I look at it the same way. Every day I'm going in, and it's just compound interest, just a little bit more and a little bit more. So but I will say what you all provide, and as a professional athlete, I've trained with everybody, is actionable solutions, right? It's like, all right, this is, I truly had a problem. I was trying to do squats the other day, and my knee was bothering me. You told me one thing, and I did it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I thought I couldn't body squat, but it was something I just needed to fix. Yeah. And I think that's the key. So I'm really enjoying that part of it, understanding that as I hit these next hurdles, how do we work around that, and how do we move on from that? That's been really fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, there was a.
Jacko is giving me a little snippet. He says he likes working towards goals. He said to me, he's floated it. He's not mentioned it much, but he did say Cuban flag. So I'm starting to just.
That looks impossible, by the way. I've seen you two do it. I'm like, yo, that's
redefine your impossible. We did it on you. That's
I know. That's when I was like, dudes are next level.
You made there was the point you made right at the beginning that I just wanted to pick up on, because I think it's really, really important that you said, like, mentally, the fact that you started with get back. I'm following this program, like, mentally, like how much that helps, and I think that there's huge value in that. But when it's linked to I believe in this program, like Tim's designed this for me, this is what I'm doing. You're working through the brand new app that people are working then with the coaching team, which you're really excited, is literally launched today, and that sort of assurance and trust that, like, the things that I'm doing, they're the right things. So not only am I following something, I have trust in it, and you build up that trust. Some people, like, you meet Tim once and you're gonna trust him as your coach, or you've not met him yet, or whatever it is, and then but you have that interaction. You go, right, I've got this problem, and the coach goes, okay, I think the issue is this. Like, try loosening off here or strengthening a bit here. How's that feel? And you go, oh, cracky, pain's going away. Like, then it makes you just like want to keep investing more and more. And you say, then I'm like, yeah, then I'm not getting disheartened. Whereas when you have those days or before when you're doing stuff and it's like you've just got pain in your back or whatever the thing is, and you can't figure out what it is you were sort of intuitively like try and stretch in certain positions, and when nothing seems to work, it can be so disheartening. And so I think there's that double whammy of like when I'm following something, I feel better, and then when I'm seeing those results and I'm trusting the process and the team or people of coaches that have designed it, then it's like, okay, now we can start to really move forward. And it's great to hear the results that you're getting with Tim. You know, I can't. I've tweaked my back a few times over the years, and I've had certain injuries that have gone on for a long time. And like when you don't know, the worst one I had my head injury where I couldn't run without getting headaches for a year, and you go to the doctor.
Wow.
When am I going to be better? And they're like, we don't know. Well, we should get better, and it has done, if you know what I mean. But you know, when you snapped your arm and you had a plate put in it, there's a process. It's like generally 6 weeks in a cast, then this, and then you'll be back playing. You're like, okay, I've got a timeline. But when you're in some of that sort of like that back pain is a classic one where when's it going to go away? Like, and being able to see some of that, like, yeah, it's really great to hear that.
Yeah, and all the injuries I've ever had, I'm, daily trying to work on those things. I know and I understand that pain is not going to go away. It's just managing them. And so I'm okay with trying things and it not working, but I'm not going to do the same thing over and over again and think I'm going to get the right result, right? So I'm willing to adjust and understand this is a process and a journey with as far as I take care of myself, especially with what I've done throughout my entire career. I mean, a lot of people don't put their bodies through what some of us have. So it's you have to understand and be sensitive to that and just go out there and look at it like a process that is going to change. I'm not going to be doing the same thing I'm doing this year and that I'm going to do next year, but I'm going to enjoy whatever it is, and it's going to be all about getting the best out of my body.
I think that's a great point for people listening to this. If you've got that injury history, like mine's my shoulders, right? So I had 2 surgeries, multiple dislocations, which I've told that story to death to a lot of people listening on the podcast. But I know that there's stuff that I've got that because there's an issue, it's just something I have to take care of. So I have to be very mindful about how my shoulders are feeling. There's certain stuff that I just always do to stay on top of it because you're just carrying something which is being pretty much broken down. So I think for people listening, if they're like, oh, I'm in pain, well, you shouldn't be in pain. That pain is your brain telling you that there's something wrong. That's how it communicates that the system is in some way broken or deficient in some areas, strength, stability, mobility, whatever it might be. So it's listening to that, and then it's understanding and working with somebody to find out what have I got to do to get rid of that pain, and then understanding that that's not a 6-week fix and then crack on for the rest of your life. If you're coming with an injury like a back surgery is, or for me shoulder surgeries and Jacko's hamstrings, it's just something that you do now. That needs to be part of your continued investment plan to stay on top of it, because otherwise it's likely that it's just going to start to come back in, because as you get weaker, as you get tighter, as you lose strength, your body's going to default back down to finding these little grumbles and issues that you've put it through. And as you say, those of us who come out of contact sports, you're left with a few scars that you can't always see of just stuff which is just a bit clattered about and smashed up. So it's there's a key real.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to change your habits. Change your habits and be okay with continuing to change your habits. And that's the key, because you're right. We're all trying to keep our health together, and age, a little bit behind us. So we're trying to stay in front of that. So that's the key.
Well, there's that.
And it's getting out of pain as well, Jacko, isn't it? We've talked a lot about this, but just don't be in pain. Like you've got to move away from that, because it's like you say, living in pain and just being in that state all the time, it makes life pretty miserable. Like
I think there's a really nice. It's actually, when Jason said it there, it's made me actually think about it sort of slightly differently, but it's probably everyone will be like, oh, it's obvious that physical pension, you go in, well, we relate it, or there's that simile with the with our actual financial pension. Well, you don't get to sort of like 45 and just go, all right, I've put into my actual financial pension for a while now, I'm just going to stop, like it'll be okay, because it's
just spin it off.
It's like, so we have to keep that investment up, which sounds really obvious, but I've just had a little bit of a.
I thought, Jacko, you got to 45 and then thought I better start.
Yeah,
it's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. That is my advice.
But, yeah, I was going to tell you a story about my actual financial pension. Then I didn't.
That's why we get That's why we
Some
actually got the
financial help.
podcast, Jason, because we
Hey,
need
listen,
financial
I
I
got to
did
put my
1 year.
disclaimer at the bottom. You know, got to put the disclaimer at the bottom, but then we can talk.
I did 1 year of paying into a teacher's pension, and then like left to play rugby. And it was like the option was like, do you want to like push like save that pension sort of somewhere, or the money you paid in for this 1 year, which like equated to like £1,000, was like, oh, do you want it back? I was like, you know what, I'll have it back. So it's just like, because I was thinking, I don't know whether that's ever going to. I'll just have it. I'll have it now. Like the opposite of the classic Jacko, the opposite of investing in your future.
It's all right. You still got time.
Yeah.
You still got time. It's amazing. Like when I got into finance and I was explaining concepts to especially a lot of athletes I work with and entertainers. With the athletes, I would talk about going into a gym. I would say, imagine the financial world is a gym. You got all this equipment, right? But you don't go in the gym and just start lifting everything. You have a plan. You don't do everything. You have, you do a little bit one day, another day, but you have your unique plan. And people were like, oh yeah, I get that. I understand that. So it became less intimidating because when you look at, finances like anything, you're overwhelmed. Like when you look at what you all are doing, when you first get involved, if you don't have any experience, it's kind of overwhelming. It's like, do I do a human flag tomorrow? Am I, and then, you're like, oh man, what do I do? So it's just understanding that this plan is going to be unique to you and what you need. And that's the key. It's all about you as an individual and what's important to you. And when you approach it like that, it's less intimidating.
Yeah, there's a couple of people on that are watching this live on the YouTube of saying that they used to play sport themselves. One a former rugby player, and find it's extremely interesting, and just providing some of that insight being helpful and uplifting for them. I had probably my sort of final question for you, Jason, was a little bit around. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the training and how you've been interacting with using the coaching app and working with us on that. What about the other side of like what happens after training? So like recovery. You may have had quite different recovery protocols when you're when you're working as a pro athlete. But what sort of things are you doing now? I know for myself, with the podcast sponsors, Newton Wood have got these fantastic Epsom salts. I've been a massissive fan of Epsom salts.
I'm doing that today, by the way.
To aid in recovery. Yeah. So like, what does recovery look like for you? And what's been your experience of that?
So I can't lie to you too because it would be inappropriate, but I am terrible at recovery in the way that I work too hard. My trainer, my entire career was like, I don't have to worry about you working. I have to worry about you resting. Yeah. So I have to plan my recovery like I do my workouts. I need to approach it the same way. For me, it's constant stretching, constant mobility training. The stuff you guys showed me with the, all the mobility stuff. I mean, that stuff is so good for me. I didn't know how much I needed that. And that's a recovery for me. I need to stay moving. I need, these joints need to stay lubricated. So I used to do, when the world was open, I was a big sauna, big steam room, big hot and cold tub. That stuff works for me. I knew how to flush my body. It was just, I needed to sweat all the toxins out and then to heal with the cold tub and stuff. That's why the Epsom salt works and things of that nature. So I really need to plan my recovery. Sometimes I don't because I spend more time thinking about the workouts, but yet when I do it and I do it correctly, I see the best results. And that is truly when I'm living pain free or the best I can be.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep, those little Epsom salts before bed.
Yeah.
Turn the phone off. A little bit of Epsom salt action.
Stuff is amazing.
Sleep like a baby.
I got another one, but I can't tell it on a live stream. It's a good one I used to use when I was playing though. It's yeah.
Is it a bit blue? Is it a bit
No. It was just it was peroxide actually. Hydrogen peroxide in a bath. I don't know where I learned this from, but it works. Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. I can't even explain it. It's
disclaimers.
I don't try it, but I did and it worked. It's just my opinion.
Mate, thank thanks so much for coming on and sharing some of that stuff and go winding back into what it was like when you finished the NFL. I think there's going to be so many people there that can relate to that, whether they're, as I say, weekend warriors or have played at a higher level. It's we all go through the same thing when we become passionately invested in our activity, in our sport, and it becomes part of who we are. And then I think, giving people hope that if they are listening to this and they are in pain, that all they've got to do is find someone who can help them. And there is light. And if you think about your history and the level that you've played at, if you can move to a place where you're not in pain, that should give people a lot of hope that when you've had a bashed up body like yours, that most people probably aren't going to be coming with such a car crash to deal with. So I hope that has been useful for people that listen to. But thanks so much, mate, for coming on.
Absolutely, and everybody just understand. Just take that first step. Once you take the first step, man, you just feel better immediately. So always take that first step and understand there are people there to help, just like you two helping me, and you just got to be there and accept it and roll with it. So thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you, mate.
All right, I'm going to click stop. All right, amazing. It's awesome. Right on brand, mate. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that was cool, man. That was fun.
So just hold tight. It's gonna give you a little. It will tell you in a second your browser, mate, when it's finished uploading, and then it will tell you when you can leave. So it's just gonna stream.
This is amazing. The tech, you guys are techies too, man. This is all right.
It took us 10 minutes to fumble away through at the beginning.
Hey, listen, that was impressive. So it was good, man. That was fun, man. I appreciate. That's crazy. Nah, man, I appreciate it. This stuff is really cool, man. It's really helped me. I think I need to buy one of those full pull-up bars. The whole setup you guys got.
What have you got, Jimbo? Have you got a bar in one of the doors?
I got one in the house. It's just a smaller one. I keep in the house in a room.
Okay.
But I think I want the bigger one. That won't fit in the house though. Was it too big to fit in a room?
Depending on how big your house is.
Yeah, I might get in trouble taking up all that space.
I've seen someone bought it. They did a time lapse of them putting it up. It was like where their kitchen table was, that was out, and they just put this rig in their kitchen, the big rig. I was like, brilliant.
That is relentless. Yeah,
that is an intent.
Mate, let's talk programming quick. Do you want me to? So I can send you some variations on those programs. Like I guess we probably had that now for 2 weeks. I think something like that, maybe 3. So do you want me to? Do you want to freshen it up with some new exercises, or do you want to keep going with those programs and we just kind of tweak the reps and sets so you kind of getting a bit of progressive overload and a bit of challenge in that?
I like the let me look at this. I got it up right now. The beginning, the first what did you actually call it? Here it is. The program, the foundation stuff. Like I go back to it and I just need it. I think the main thing is I'd like to mess with the reps and stuff like that, but I guess think about like my core and that lower back, like whatever I can do, like that is whatever exercise and all the stuff I've been doing. Like I did, the YTWs today because my neck was hurting. And I just felt so good, like after doing them. And I'm just getting so much better with those basic things. So I still like that, but anything I can do for my core and that lower back, because I think is the key. So.
Okay, I'm going to throw a few tweaks in there then. And what I might do is just send you, I kind of was a bit worried that I bombarded you with like a load of different programs to try, but I just want you to kind of have enough variety. And I know that because training, you'll be able to pick out and actually take the exercises and put them into your own program at some point. I kind of just want to give you the tools, and then you can